Hey guys, I've just installed these high quality shop lights for my workshop. I needed something to give me enough light to work, but also give me the light quality I need to produce high quality videos. Here's what my shop looked like beforehand. I didn't have any sort of special lighting, and the light bulbs that were there were 3000 K color temperatures, so everything was very yellow, and as you can see, lots of shadows. And this is what it looks like now. I'm still not using any sort of video lighting, as you can tell from the shadows on my face, but it's practically night and day. So what did I use? I used American Greenlight's 24-watt LED strips. They're 4 foot in length, and they give off just shy of 2300 lumens. In my shop, that works out to being, with 20 of them installed, just shy of 79 lumens per square foot. I saw anywhere online that you should have anywhere between 70 and 150. It seemed to be really mixed from where I checked, so don't quote me on what you should get. I find 79 looks quite good. There is some spots that are a little bit more dim, but it's totally workable. 150, I think it's too bright. Maybe if you're doing a lot of precision work, that makes more sense, but I'd probably rather have just a couple, shop lights hooked up to the drill press or the bandsaw, just to light up my work area a little bit better. But I'm very happy with this. I should mention that I'm not sponsored. I did find them through a couple of YouTube videos. I should mention James from Stubby Nubs and Jason from Bent's Woodworking. They both have reviews on them, and they had fantastic results. I think they were sponsored. I'm not. I'm happy with the results as well. So I should mention they also have a color render index of 95. Now, what does the color render index mean? It's basically how well the colors show up accurately when the light is shining on them. So anything closer to 100 is going to be what sunlight, if you're holding the object outside, what it looks like. Anything 90 and above is probably fantastic for video. These end up are 95. And yeah, you can see the results. It's very good. So I thought I'd give a close-up on these lights. They are just basically LED strips in a little channel there. They're 43.5 inches long. And I think you can buy them with or without, but I bought them with the diffuser just to give a little nicer light. And then they come pre-wired with these connectors on them, which will work if you're connecting them close together. And then what you'd have to do is just solder the other end onto the next light in the proper spots. You might find that you could do this cheaper. I think this was about $60 US per light. If you bought a large roll of the LED strip and did everything, but I figured, with your time and everything, it might end up costing you more. I'll show you how I installed these. To open them up first, you need to just peel them back with a fine screwdriver and then just peel the rest back. Because I'm hooking these up in series, I drilled a hole on the end of all of the LED units, except the last one. You have to be careful as you're drilling because they twist really easy, so it's best to hold it firmly like I am and just go slow with the drill. Otherwise they'll twist, and I actually had one of the end caps break on me. I'm using this rosin paste flux to help the solder, as well as this solder, which is a rosin core. I'm not exactly sure if this is the exact stuff I should be using, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. Because the distance between each light fixture for me was only 17.5 inches, I didn't need to use the connection on the end, as it's about 18.5 inches right to the end of that clip. So when I stripped the wires and fed it through the hole, it actually worked out. So pretty much it was exactly 17.5 inch per light. I'm no expert in soldering, But I stripped the wires and tinned the end of each wire before trying to solder it to the LED strip. I then put a little bit of blob of solder on the end of the soldering iron, and so when I held it down, I only had to hold the soldering iron onto the wire and the solder for just a moment to get it to melt. This does work a bit better if you don't have shaky hands like me, but even with shaky hands, you can still get it done. Once you're finished soldering them, you can just put a bit of hot glue on top of the wires like I'm doing, and it just kind of keeps the wires in place and prevents the tension right on the solder joint. Then you can just snap the diffusers back in, just working from one end and going across. It's quite satisfying putting these back together. Before installing, I recommend peeling back the plastic on each unit. The clips aren't that strong when you're hanging them from, so if you were to pull this back, you could easily pull it off the ceiling. To install these, it's pretty simple. You can just use the plastic drywall anchors. They don't really have to go into studs or anything because their lights are super light. And you just have to make sure that the screw that goes into the plastic anchor has a flat top. Otherwise, the light fixture doesn't snap into the little brackets very well. You might have to buy separate screws to go with the anchors. I found it easiest to start on the first row next to the wall. You can just measure off the wall, and it's best to use a laser line on the ceiling just to make sure that first line is perfect. And then going on each extra row, you just measure off the last fixtures that you installed. That way they'll look uniform across. If you try to measure off the wall, it's pretty hard the further you get away from the wall to make sure that the distances is correct. I recommend the first row to be anywhere between 2 and 3 feet off the wall. I did 3 feet because if I ever put cabinets there, you don't want the lights to be behind the cabinets. So 3 feet puts it kind of out in a nice spot. And then it's recommend probably to use about a 4-foot distance between the lights. I did around that. I generally just centered it between my garage doors, and it probably worked out to be closer to 5 feet in the middle there, but it still worked out fine. I was pretty happy with the end result. So I thought I'd share a little behind the wall stuff. I just ran the wires into these junction boxes. It's not ideal to have them this low in the insulation. It'd be better to have them up a little higher on a post or something, but they're just low voltage, and so it's not the end of the world. And I will show you where I've ran it. So in my attic, I have this storage room, and I mean, you could put this on under a cabinet or wherever you want, but basically my power's actually run into here, and then I just have a 3-way wire run into here for both switches, and they share the neutral. Yeah, and my LED drivers are in there. So pretty simple. So I thought I'd pan with my iPhone here. So as you can see, I've got a total of 20 lights installed. I also wanted to give out a shout out to American Green Lights. Customer service was fantastic. I emailed them late at night. The owner responded that evening, got back to all my questions, and I didn't know what driver to get for them. They sell drivers that aren't listed on their website, so he just told me, okay, how much are you getting? And he just gave me the options, and it was super easy. And every time I sent an email, he responded back immediately. So it's not something you get from most companies. I don't know if they're a big company or a small company. My guess is they might be on the smaller side, but yeah, either way, it's fantastic. It is also very difficult to find high CRI shop lights like this, or I don't know, they're not necessarily only for your shop. You could use them in an art studio or whatnot, but they're hard to find in Canada. that's why I went to the US. I end up buying them for about $60 each. Comparably in Canada, I would have found something for about $85 Canadian. So probably very close, but with a CRI rating of only 85. That was the maximum I could find. So yeah, I'm very happy with these. They are a little bit of a DIY product if you hook them up like I did, because you do have to solder with, well, I should clarify that. You don't have to solder them if you wire them up into the individual boxes. What I've done is I've hooked them up in series, and then you have to solder them to each other. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do, so don't let that shy you away from installing them. But either way, I'm very happy with them, and yeah, hope you guys like the results.